Am I good enough? Does my voice matter? Do I look fat? Am I going fast enough? Will I ever be successful? Am I learning and growing? What is my truth in this moment? How do I feel? Faster? Why do I want to go faster? And success? What does that even mean? What you've just witnessed are two conversations that happen in my brain every single day. Worry and wonder. Worry is the chatter that ruminates on the past and feels anxiety for the future. Worry is why I have a head cold right now, because she was so frightened for me to get on this stage. Worry says, you're not ready yet. Your story doesn't matter. And for years, worry prevented me from getting here right now and sharing this message with you. That's what worry does. She stunts our progress. She tells us we can't, we're not ready. And she puts our dreams at bay. But thankfully, there's wonder. And wonder, she's got our back. Wonder is the investigative sidekick who questions my worries, dives deep into their origin, and helps me to create new and more empowering storylines. Wonder is the muse that encourages me to follow my curiosity. She says, give it a try. Let yourself have fun in the process. Wonder is the Zen master that always brings me back to this moment and reminds me that the magic is right here, right now. When I choose wonder, doors open, dots connect, and I get this feeling that I'm on serendipity highway. Now, when given the option to hang out with worry or to hang out with wonder, who would you choose? The answer seems obvious, right? Why wouldn't we choose to hang out with wonder? It's not quite that simple. According to a study, 80% of our time and attention is spent with regret about the past or anxiety about the future. 80% of our time and attention is spent worrying. Now, if you're like me, you might find it concerning that for the majority of our time on this precious earth, it's spent on some voice in our head telling us a story that might not even be true. When I look back at my own life, I see myself as a kid filled with infinite curiosity and wonder for the world around me. I was raised by an entrepreneurial mom who's here with us today. Say hi, Mom. I was raised by this entrepreneurial mom who always encouraged me to go after my creative ideas. Whether I was selling candy to the neighborhood, or leaving love notes on cars, or just making things, I was always in this state of wonder and curiosity. I grew up next to Bob, the computer guy who built and sold computers, and some of my fondest memories as a kid are playing in the lab with him. When I was 11, I started an online magazine called Teen Zine because I wanted to inspire confidence in young women. I was frustrated with the magazines for girls my age telling you what to wear and how to please and how to get boys to like you. I can vividly remember heading into chat rooms to talk about what I was up to with the magazine, to find out who was interested, to collect their emails, and eventually I created this magazine with 5,000 subscribers and 2 corporate sponsors. Every Sunday, I would spend the whole day putting the magazine together, pulling the content from the different contributors, and when I hit send, I actually had to go through and manually search for and delete the emails of those who were no longer valid. It took hours, but I didn't care because I was so led by and devoted to wonder. This all began to shift, though, when I entered high school and college. My attention turned toward competition, maintaining an A average, and beating the boys in calculus. I was obsessed with perfect, 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 and perfect began to rule my life. Worry began to rule my life. I developed eating disorders. I sought external validation as proof of my own self-worth. And when I got to college, I was popping Adderall and pulling all-nighters to reach goals I didn't really believe in, to reach goals I had never created for myself, to reach goals I never thought to question. This desire to perform, this pursuit of ambition, it led me to make strides in my career left and right. I worked with Apple. I helped Fortune 100 brands with their global marketing campaigns. I worked with startups in San Francisco and New York, helped New York Times bestselling author Seth Godin launch a publishing experiment with Amazon. But in the process of doing, I had completely forgotten about being. And the noise outside of me telling me how to live and how to work and what to do, and it became so loud that I forgot how to hear myself. This spiraled, this disconnection, it spiraled until one particularly dark and dreary afternoon when I found myself on the floor of my Tribeca, New York apartment in a full-on panic attack. My mind was racing. I was crying hysterically, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I actually thought I might die in that moment. I had a business mentor there for a meeting with me, and we were supposed to be having a status update, and it was wildly embarrassing to have him there with me in this moment of disarray. But what he did next deeply surprised me. He walked into the room where I was on the floor. He walked up to me. He put his right hand on my shoulder, and he put his left hand on his heart, and he said, "Amber, if you're ever lost, listen here." This was the very last thing I expected my business mentor to tell me, to tune inward and listen to my heart. But that woke me up from my self-created panic and reminded me that I had stopped getting quiet and hearing myself. So in that moment, I got quiet. I tuned inward, and a voice whispered, "This isn't the only way, Amber. You can choose differently, and you can choose differently now." I awoke from my self-created cage of worry and realized that in my pocket I actually held the key of wonder. I'd just forgotten how to turn it. So the more I created the space to get quiet, to hear myself, to push the noise outside of me that had taken over, the more I began to go back on the path of wonder. The more I began to step into the curiosity I felt as a kid. What's interesting about that moment in time, that moment of panic, is that from the outside looking in, no one knew the hell that I was going through on the inside. I didn't even know the hell that I was going through on the inside, because for so long I had trained myself to see the silver lining in everything and to replace sadness with happiness. I would see an uneasy feeling emerge in my life and I would say, "Shh, you're not welcome here. Go away." That's how I dealt with the uncomfortable things in my life. Shh, go away. And that is when worry becomes dangerous. The dangerous kind of worry is why high school suicides are increasing because of the pressure to perform. It's why the advertising industry's photoshopped beauty ideals have led the average adult woman to have 13 thoughts of self-hate a day. It's why 90% of the global workforce is reportedly unhappy. It's why the top regret of those on their deathbed is, "I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not the life that others expected of me." It's why when I talk to my brilliant creative and entrepreneurial friends, they are burnt out and they don't feel like they have a safe space to talk about their struggles. That is when worry is dangerous. When we sweep it under the rug, when we push it away, and we tell it to be quiet. Shh, I do have some good news, though. The good news is that when we use wonder to inquire into our worries, and when we look at the world through a lens of wonder, we can actually rewire our brain and change the reality that we live in. It's called neuroplasticity, and it refers to the science that our brains can actually change when we train them to do so. Think of it like training for a marathon, and that marathon is your most wondrous life. Every time you choose wonder instead of worry, you strengthen that muscle, you strengthen that pathway in your brain, and you begin to create new possibilities. It's a skill that invites daily practice. I was recently interviewed, and I had this woman ask me, "So Amber," she said, "even after experiencing success in your career, how do you silence the voice of self-doubt?" Silence the voice of self-doubt, I thought? She's here every single day. Whether I'm preparing to get on stage, whether I'm preparing for an art reveal or an amazing opportunity emerges, worry can consume me if I'm not paying attention. The trick is to catch it real time. I call these moments wonderventions, and every time I notice myself falling down the rabbit hole of worry, I pause and I lean into wonder. This can show up in our lives in small ways and in big ways. Let's start with 3 small ways. The first one, I like to think of this as using doubt as a compass north toward purpose. Something that happens a lot in my creative path is that I start to notice this worry chatter of, are you really an artist? Are you sure you're ready to get on stage? You think you can do that? I'm not so sure. Whenever worry questions my capabilities and whether or not I'm ready to do something I deeply and truly want to do, I know that is pointing me true north toward exactly what I must do. When I look at anything meaningful I've ever done in my entire life, there was first an ocean of doubt that required me to dip in my toe, feel it out, and eventually dive in. So the next time your worry voice is getting loud and wondering, can you really do that? I invite you to see that doubt as a sign of, yes, that is the path toward growth and evolution. The second small way, I like to think of this as talking to worry and allowing her to be heard. So as I was preparing this talk, which was a 6-month process, by the way, there were so many times where I didn't know where it was going, where it felt uneasy, where there were gaps in the content, and I didn't know how it was going to come together. In those moments of uncertainty, in those moments of unknown, worry got very loud. Worry would say things like, I don't know about this. This isn't very good. It's not interesting. You should probably just stop now while you're ahead, because it's probably going to suck and no one's going to like it anyway. When that happens, I will literally have a conversation with worry. Because what I've come to recognize about these emotions is that they just want to be heard and seen and felt and acknowledged. It's like a little inner child throwing a tantrum, wanting to be heard. So I'll pull worry aside, grab her hand, and I'll say, worry, I understand that this work makes you feel uncomfortable. I understand that being seen makes you feel uneasy. I hear you, I get it, I feel you. It's hard. Here's the thing, though. This is our life's work, and it's wonder who is going to guide us in doing this work. So I need you to back off, all right? And I'll grab Wonder's hand, and we'll get back to work. The third wondervention, small way, I like to think of as pausing and visualizing the why. 2 weeks ago, I was heading into an interview with this inventor and astrophysicist who I deeply respect and admire. And I was so nervous going into the interview. I had, the worry chatter saying, do you have the right questions? Will you do okay? What is he gonna think of this? And I realized in that me conversation, I actually had lost sight of why I was even heading into that conversation. So in those moments, I will close my eyes, take a deep breath, and take as many deep breaths until my mind is slow and still. And from that place of stillness, I will remember why. So in the instance of this interview, I had the opportunity to walk in there and ask a series of questions that will unearth his wisdom such that I can package it and share it with the world. What an honor. And once I was in touch with that why, I got back into my purpose and worry dissolved. Just this morning, I couldn't hear out of my right ear until this morning. And just this morning, I was wondering, oh no, what if I have to blow my nose on stage? And what if I forget my lines and the head cold? And I had, again, that me worry chatter. And when I closed my eyes and I realized that I had the opportunity to share a message with all of you at this amazing conference, gratitude stood up and wonder took us forward. So when you're losing sight of the why, get still and tune back into that. Then there are the big ways that worry can show up in our lives. And in these big ways, they can create stories and narratives that literally take our life in a certain direction. I want to talk about two big ways that worry has taken me from breakdown to breakthrough and breakdown and breakthrough and back again, because maybe you can relate. The first one, am I blank enough? Am I good enough, strong enough, thin enough, tall enough, creative enough? Am I enough? Have you ever asked yourself this question before? Have you? Me too, big time. One of the first people I ever deeply loved, I didn't think I deserved to be with him. I worried I wasn't thin enough or cool enough or easygoing enough. And so I held back, and I never shared with him all of my hopes and dreams and fears. I worried that if he knew about what was rumbling inside of me, and if he knew about the world I imagined, it would be too much, or I would be over-emotional. So I held back, and I never shared with him my true self. If you can guess where the story is going, that relationship didn't work out. And it was so painful when we broke up that to this day I can still feel a sharp pain in my heart. It's not because he rejected me, though. It's because in pursuit of seeking his approval, in pursuit of putting my self-worth in the hands of someone else, I had completely and utterly rejected myself. That warrior part of me still shows up. It wants you to like this talk. It hopes this message will resonate. It's a little terrified that talking about love and wonder and worry at a technology conference may not be well received. The difference is, I've stopped asking, will you approve of me? And do you like this? And I've learned to ask, is this reflective of my truth? And can I still love myself, no matter the response? And that's what wonder does. Wonder sees the inner warrior inside of us that so wants to be liked and realize that love comes from here first. The second big worry I want to dive into with you guys. Does my voice matter? Have you asked this one before? Me too. So, I once had someone who I just deeply respected and admire tell me, no one really cares about your story, Amber. No one really cares about your story. This person is a world-renowned artist, speaker, and writer. And seeing that I was an aspiring world-renowned artist, speaker, and writer, to me, that was the worst thing he could have ever possibly said to me. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that I believed him. My ego was so bruised from our interaction that I never thought to ask him what he meant when he said that. And I'm sure he had a gem of wisdom to share. But worry took over and freaked out. And instead I took those words, your story doesn't matter, and I allowed them to rumble through my being as truth. And from that day forward, I created and I reinforced a very dangerous and a very damaging story. My story doesn't matter. My voice doesn't matter. My ideas don't matter. Do I matter? This played out to the point that I began editing myself, I'm a writer, out of my stories because I thought that if I shared too much about myself, no one would care. In that self-editing process, I couldn't say yes to speaking engagements because I couldn't create anything that I could put my whole heart behind. When the opportunity to write a book emerged, I stumbled. Your story doesn't matter, Worry said. Go find other stories to tell. It was only a few years ago when the pain of going forward felt greater than going through change that I actually became aware of how that story was holding its grip on me. Wonder kept showing up and giving me little clues of where I was most called. Wonder took me into art galleries and creative studios where these ideas that were lying dormant inside of me began to come back to the surface. Wonder led me around New York City to ask strangers about their hopes, their dreams, their fears, and the world they wanted to live in, which later became a global art project. Wonder took me to the stories that deeply resonated with those showing deep truth and vulnerability by the author. It's as if Wonder were there waving her wand, saying, this way, come with me. And she was, because that is what Wonder does. Wonder brings light when worry is stuck in darkness. Wonder stands as the path to what's possible. Even as I was preparing this talk, this same worry came up over and over again. Ooh, don't say that. They're definitely going to judge you there. Talking too much about yourself again. Stop that. But Wonder would smile ever so gracefully and remind me that when we conceal our truth, we limit our ability to connect with the world around us. Stories are what unite us, and as I heard from Oprah herself at a talk she gave at the UN, these 8 words sent goosebumps up my spine. Every human wants to feel like they matter. Every human wants to feel like they matter. Oprah has given over 35,000 interviews, from Beyonce to someone who murdered their children. And after every single interview, Oprah was asked, was that okay? Beyonce would ask, was that okay? Someone who murdered their children would ask, was that okay? I will likely walk off stage and go ask my mom, was that okay? The point is, we all want to be seen and heard and felt and acknowledged. And one of the most powerful ways to guide people to see and to feel themselves is through vulnerable storytelling, through pulling out the bits within us that feel terrifying to express and allowing those to be seen by the world. That's why I want you to know that you matter, your voice matters, your ideas matter, your story matters. The truth within you that sometimes feels fucking terrifying to express really fucking matters. And it is Wonder who will guide you to exploring and revealing that part within you. I want to close today with a picture of a piece of pottery that I like to think of as the Wonder Bowl. It's inspired by the Japanese art of kintsugi, which takes shattered pottery and pieces it back together with gold lacquer. The process doesn't hide the fact that the pottery has shattered. It celebrates those imperfections as making the piece of art even more unique. When I look at that bowl, I see a metaphor for worry and wonder. Worry are the cracks the imperfections, the flaws, that if not handled with love and care and empathy and compassion and wonder, will cause the bowl to fall apart. But with wonder, with that wand, with that gold lacquer, it celebrates all of who we are and creates this unique piece of art that never would have before existed. That piece of art is our lives. And I have a wonder bowl, and you 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 have a wonder bowl. And wonder will guide us to bringing forth that unique expression and sharing it with the world. So, as this event comes to a close, as you head to a dinner, as you go about your day-to-day, I invite you to notice how worry shows up in your life. I invite you, when you're falling down the trap of worry, to see the possibility of wonder and to lean in. Because in every moment we have a choice. We can choose worry, or we can choose wonder. Which will you choose? Thank you. Thank you.